It says I'm live. It says I'm live, and we're trying to use YouTube as it's changed its methods, and I'm not using a bunch of software, nor am I going to use uh, the real video and go from there. So that being said, I've had a lot of requests to find out what happened. What happened, right? Well, what happened about what is the first question you're going to ask me, and that's about the Combat JKD, the the legacy, the reunion of the Lost Boys of Combat JKD in St. Louis, November of 2019. Okay, so this takes a lot of setting up, a lot of background, and that means I got to cover a lot of things. All right, so the other people involved originally, Ken O'Neill and Stan Brooks. So those guys trained before me. We've all, most of you know that are interested in this subject. Uh, Mike Sandlin was the guy who trained us. Now it's become uniquely clear to me that my time with Mike Sandlin was totally different than anyone else's. I trained only with Mike Sandlin, not with anyone else. I wasn't in a class. I trained one on one, and it was very, very intense. A minimum of 4 hours, 6 days a week for over a year. And obviously, I made huge progress. And his teaching was the most advanced at that period of time because this is over a decade later than when he trained Ken, and much later after he had trained. He trained Stan back in the early 70s. So anyway, he had evolved. His stuff was at a higher level. His presentation, his structure, his mindset was also at that point very, very combat oriented. And that's something that I found that's totally different about my time period with Mike Sandlin. Was I got the very, very high combat mindset from him. He was a Vietnam veteran, and that stuff was affecting him pretty heavily at that point in his life, for one thing. Also, just situational life conditions. And I was only there, for a year. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. People go through different changes, stages through their lives. When I trained with him, he was severely about the combat mindset and being realistic, not watered down, no pussyfooting around or anything like that. Other guys, I don't think got that. They didn't have that sort of training because they didn't do it. No one else trained like I did. No one else trained one on one with them. No one, no one. So I'm very unique in that thing. So I brought that perspective to Combat JKD. Now, the legacy of Combat JKD is what I cared about. Those people who know about this realize that the only reason you know about Combat JKD is because of me, because of my work, because of one man's work. And that started back in the early 90s with Jerry Beasley, who ran a JKD column in the Karate International, Michael DiPasquale Jr.'s magazine, who was a good guy. And Jerry Beasley, who doesn't get credit for his JKD connections because Joe Louis was the only fighter that Bruce Lee ever trained. The only fighter. Let's get a grip on that aspect. A bunch of wannabes and thinking that they're fighters, it's not the same as being a fighter. So that is the only person Bruce had that was a professional fighter. The only one. So to try to discount Joe Louis and his connection with Jerry Beasley is just fraudulent, to say the least. So anyway, with Jerry Beasley's help, I was able to let the world know about Combat JKD. Started out in his magazine. Later, I came to prominence because of my videos, which changed the self-defense world completely, rocked them, put other people out of business, and pissed off the other people in the JKD thing because they're like, you're not JKD. I'm not your generic JKD. No, I am Combat JKD, and I was evolving. Everything that Mike wanted to see. Now, I'm the only one out of that group who was a professional fighter. I'm the only one. I'm the only one who became a close protection guy. I'm the only one who was a bouncer. Mike had been, and that's Mike suggested I do that. That's why I did that. I did that. Actually, I did it before I met Mike, but then when I met Mike, I did that for many, many years and in many, many settings, so that I had practice and operational experience with the things that I was creating and evolving. Now, some of my guys who are on those tapes, on the Combat JKD tapes that are known, so now the guys that are on my tapes are known better than the guys in St. Louis. And that's because that took work and effort. And that was from my effort. That was from Sean Stiles' effort for being there, and Mike Farrell. Those guys were on the original Combat JKD tapes that are still out, still being sold. And people ask me about those guys. Those guys were going to be there in St. Louis in November. Now, I got to say that. See, I had brought and worked for years. I live in Southeast Asia. I don't need to go to St. Louis for anything. It's not my world. It's not my culture. It's not what I do, okay? I live in the jungle. I deal with situations. I am a military trainer. That's what I do. That I have been a professional fighter. Like I said, I train professional athletes. But my main thrust right now, and has been, is military. I don't care about wannabes. I don't care about people playing around. I care about having to produce results, and I have evolved and changed things. Combat JKD it wasn't where I started. I started in many other martial arts, but that was where I got the template to change. And I changed and evolved. And I represent that mindset that Mike Sandlin had during the time period that he trained me. He doesn't have it anymore. The other guys that he trained don't have it. So that's got to be clearly said. Now, I worked very hard to get this legacy event going. And I had, like I said, Mike Farrell coming back. People haven't seen him in a long time. Sean Stiles, who asked about him all the time with me. I got him coming back. I had Josh Thompson, who was on the Comrock Boss tapes. He was coming too. This is a lot of work. Like I'm saying, I'm 12,000 miles away and over 12 time zones from St. Louis, 15 from where I am when I go to the United States, 15-hour time difference. No one else is going through all that effort. So we had this set up on a graduated basis. Ken O'Neill had done work to find a location for us that he'd used before. So we had a location. We had it set up. He was working on his end. And from what I understand, because I haven't gotten any clear answers, they dropped the fucking ball there in St. Louis. Those guys would not commit. They would not support this. So basically, my guys who lived far away, nobody lives in St. Louis, were going to come to this. Some had committed, others were hanging back because they were scared that this was going to happen. They were scared because I wasn't the only one involved. They wanted to be a part of it. A lot of people asked me about this. Sean Stiles and Mike Farrell had already made plans about it. Josh Thompson was 70% there on the plans to set that time aside and to make the effort, to make the journey, to go all the way there, because they don't live anywhere near there. They live in Texas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. And I had other people coming from other places that were far away too in the U.S. They weren't local, so we would hope that the local guys would support this. Now, I have asked for clarification, but I haven't ever got any clarification. So I've got to answer you the best way I know, and is that they dropped the ball. I don't know what the hell happened in St. Louis with the guys that are there locally, but they wouldn't support it. So, I have done more than one man has to do with the legacy of Combat JKD. I have worked. I'm the one who reconnected with Stan and Ken. They didn't reconnect with me. I went to look for them. I put out the effort. I put the energy in it. I put out the effort 2 years ago to try to make this happen. I put out the effort to come there, to go out of my way to come there to get this done. I can run my own events and courses, which I'm doing. And also, we have a new venture. I won't talk about that here, but we have a new venture that I'm involved with that I'm very, very happy and excited about. We're moving more and more tactical, and that's where I want to be. I don't want to be with a bunch of martial arts wannabes and stuff. I don't want to be with fanboys who want to collect techniques. I want to be with people who have to live and survive, who understand that you got to have results. So you might think that that's a tangent. It is not, because it's a clear mindset difference than thing. Now, the three of us have different mindsets, which is good. You're going to see different levels of different aspects of combat JKD. What happened with the three of us? You know, like, where were we? What happened? But in reality, we were not trained the same. We had the same trainer. He was at different stages in his life. I was the only one to train one-on-one. And I think he was a lot more, well, you know, bellicose with me, because it was only about combat. It wasn't about anything else. And his drills and the progression and all of that was more evolved than when he had trained those guys. And he had eliminated more things and streamlined more things. And that made it much faster for me to get through. Okay. It still was a very heavily attribute driven. Well, it was completely attribute driven. And that's a flaw with JKD. And I have changed that. That's when I made a break and went to Comrade Boss. I realized that attribute driven training is not going to save the masses, but I could by doing other things. And if you want to know those answers, you can look at my material. You can go look at fluentfighting.com, for example. And then from there, I looked at, okay, let's use this in real combat. And now operational stuff for the military is completely different than when people are saying, this is Krav Maga, this is military. No, it's not. The stuff you're doing, or even some of the Sambo, it is not going to work, because they don't even know the conditions, the parameters of the modern day battlefield. They don't know it. They're training as if they're in 1930, you know, or 40. That is not the situation now. It is not. So I'm not going to go into details. Anybody who knows the battlefield knows what I'm talking about. That's why people want me, you know. That's why I do this. I'm a subject matter expert. But to answer the question about what happened, in my opinion, Combat JKD has died. The guys in St. Louis can't even support having a reunion of having the most notoriety that ever came to it. Without growing, it is going to die. It is going to be a small sub-branch of something that happened in St. Louis in the 70s, and it's dead. It's gone. And that's all on the people who live there not supporting this and not doing this. They weren't putting out any sort of effort. I'm talking about the students there. The students there. We're not putting out the effort required to get this accomplished, you know? It's not about your feelings. It's not about how you think about it. It's getting the result. And if you can't see that, then you're woefully back on combat. So you got to know that. Anyway, so I have not got any answers about specifics. They said they were going to find out why these guys backed out in mass, why they did that. I haven't heard a damn thing in weeks. They killed it, you know? They killed it. I have tried. I put out all the effort I'm ever going to put out. I've done more than anybody else. It's time for everyone else to step up in Combat JKD and do as much as I did. It was in magazines. It was worldwide known. I was on interviews in radio and TV in different countries. I put Combat JKD on the goddamn map. No one else did that. The only reason anybody knows Mike Sandlin's name is because of me. Now, if you want to hide in obscurity, that doesn't do anybody any good. Then you're being insanely selfish and you're holding back something. But at the end of all this, that's what happened. That is exactly what happened. Combat JKD is dead. It has fucking died because the guys that were students couldn't support it. And I'm not talking about my guys. My guys take zero blame in this. All right. That's all on you guys in the St. Louis area. And if you have a hard time with that, your emotions are all running thing, then why'd you fuck up? Right? Why did you fuck? I don't want to hear your fucking emotions, you know? So there you go. Hard talk from a hard man who doesn't have time for emotional stupidity. Okay. you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Famous saying, and special ops. And it applies here. Anyway, so fluentfighting.com, combat-judo.com. Check it out. We got a new thing. I have a new business adventure dealing with guys who are very serious. We don't mess around, and we're all tactical. Okay, and by tactical I mean the real thing. We're doing it's dynamic real world pistol, dynamic real world carbine. We're gonna have a jungle school. We're gonna have a mountain division. We have everything planned, and we have all the guys for it. Everybody is a subject matter expert in what they're teaching, and of course, I'll be handling zero distance warfare. All right, so this is Christophe Clugston giving you the breakdown as I know it. Okay,